Toxic masculinity, the psychology behind it. You've seen it. A teenage boy laughs off pain, punches a wall when he's hurt, or mocks a friend for crying. He calls it strength, but deep down, he's scared. Scared of looking weak, scared of losing control. That's the hidden world of adolescent toxic masculinity, the quiet code boys inherit before they even know what it means. A code that punishes softness, rewards silence, and convinces them that emotions are dangerous. Because from the outside, it looks like confidence, but deep down, it's fear. The fear of being noticed, and it begins early, when strength stops being strength and starts being silence. From a young age, boys are told what real men do. They don't cry, they don't lose, they don't ask for help. It sounds like discipline, but it's really disconnection. In adolescence, when identity begins to take shape, these rules hit the hardest. Every glance from a peer, every joke, every challenge becomes a test of manhood, and slowly that test becomes a prison. Studies show that when teenage boys internalize these rigid gender norms, they face higher risks of depression, aggression, and loneliness. The research is clear. The higher their score in dominance and emotional control, the higher their anxiety, the lower their ability to connect. So masculinity becomes a mask, built for protection, but impossible to breathe behind. But beneath that mask lies something deeper. The psychology of pressure, because this version of masculinity isn't born in a single moment. It's layered, shaped by three invisible forces. The first is emotional restriction. From childhood, boys are taught to hide what hurts, to bury sadness, fear, even empathy. But emotions don't disappear when buried. They ferment. They twist into anger or apathy. Brain scans even show that emotional suppression increases stress. The body floods with cortisol, so what looks like control is really tension. The second force is peer performance. That constant social mirror every teenage boy lives in. In the hallway, the locker room, the group chat, the loudest, toughest, least vulnerable boy gets status. Everyone else learns to copy him, not because they believe in it, but because they're scared not to. Psychologists call it masculinity discrepancy test. The fear of not measuring up to what a man is supposed to be. That fear drives boys toward aggression, even when it contradicts who they are. And the third force, the most painful, is isolation. When honesty becomes shameful, connection dies. Teenage boys stop confiding. They stop feeling safe enough to be known. One review found that strict adherence to masculine norms directly predicts loneliness. Behind the laughter and posturing, a quiet grief builds, the grief of being unseen. And it costs them more than anyone realizes. Because the damage of toxic masculinity in adolescence isn't abstract, it's measurable. Rates of depression, anxiety, and even thoughts of self-harm climb. In one study, young males who identified most strongly with dominance-based ideals were nearly twice as likely to consider ending their lives. On the outside, they look confident. Inside, they're collapsing, torn between fitting in and feeling something real. And that pain doesn't stop at high school walls. In relationships, that emotional suppression carries forward. Intimacy feels foreign. Empathy feels uncomfortable. Many young men end up chasing approval instead of connection because no one ever told them that real strength includes softness. But this isn't random. It's rehearsed, reinforced every single day. At home, the messages sound simple. Man up, don't cry, be the provider. Harmless words, until they teach a boy that love must be stoic and worth must be proven. When fathers model distance as power, sons copy it. They're not learning confidence, they're learning survival. And then there's culture. Scroll long enough and the algorithm hands every teenage boy a distorted mirror. Hyper-masculine ideals, aggressive influencers, alpha language, emotional numbness disguised as power. It's identity-based, belonging wrapped in anger. And in schools, the same theater repeats. Respect becomes performance. Jokes become weapons. The one who never backs down earns validation. The one who opens up risks humiliation. So everyone learns the same rule. Wear armor or be a target. That's how toxic masculinity survives. Not through hate, but through imitation, through silence, through boys teaching boys to fear themselves. But this is where things can change. The same psychology that builds toxic masculinity can unbuild it. It starts with emotional literacy, the ability to name what you feel before it controls you. When boys learn to say, "I'm scared," instead of showing it as anger, the cycle cracks. Research shows that teaching emotional labeling cuts aggression by nearly 40%, because once you can name it, you can own it, instead of being owned by it. Then comes redefining strength, not as dominance, but as balance. Strength that protects without controlling, leads without silencing, feels without fear. The examples matter more than the lectures. The coaches who cry, the fathers who apologize, the brothers who listen. They teach that manhood isn't a mask, it's a mirror. And when boys see that, the shame starts to dissolve. Next comes connection, creating spaces where young men can be honest without punishment. In mentorships, sports teams, and friend group. When one boy speaks, others follow. Empathy rises, the armor thins. And finally, accountability, not through blame, but awareness. It's not about telling boys they're broken. It's about showing them the code they inherited and giving them permission to rewrite it. Because masculinity doesn't need to be destroyed. It needs to evolve. Healthy masculinity isn't fragile. It's flexible. It holds both power and presence. Power says, I can act. Presence says, I can listen. Together, they create balance. Men who are grounded, not guarded. Studies show that boys who grow into flexible masculine identities, who see caring and strength as partners, become more resilient adults. Less depression, more connection, more peace. That's the future we build when we stop teaching boys to hide. Imagine it, a world where a teenage boy can cry without losing respect, protect without dominating, love without fear. That's not a weakness, that's evolution. Because when one boy learns that strength can coexist with softness, the definition of manhood shifts. And that's how change begins. Not in revolutions, but in quiet rooms, where boys finally feel safe to feel.